Welcome to the Classic Soap Operas podcast and the first episode of Legacy of a Soap Star, where we revisit the unforgettable characters who shaped daytime drama. Today, we are undertaking, well, a monumental task. We're diving deep into the life and legacy of Joanne Gardner. She's a fictional heroine whose story is it's synonymous with the entire history of American daytime television. We're talking about a woman who just defined grace under pressure for over 3.5 decades. A character who kind of transcended the medium itself, and of course, the extraordinary actress who played her, Mary Stuart. Our sources paint this picture of resilience, tragedy, and frankly, record-breaking commitment.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to overstate the magnitude here. Joanne Gardner, or Jo, as everyone knew her, she was portrayed by Mary Stuart for the entire 35-year run of Search for Tomorrow.
The entire run?
From day one in 1951 until the very last episode in 1986. That length of time, that continuous commitment to a single character, it's basically a milestone. It defines what modern television endurance even looks like.
Yeah.
She wasn't just a star, she was the show's living anchor, really the moral center of that whole fictional town, Henderson.
Absolutely. And just think about the scope of that time frame, 1951 to 1986. Jo navigated the entire cultural, technological, emotional shift of America, all through this, lens of melodrama. So our mission today is to unpack that journey. It's profound. We want to know, how did this supposedly simple salt-of-the-earth heroine manage to persevere? Through endless personal tragedies, 4 marriages, family betrayals, huge network shifts, and still keep her eye fixed squarely on tomorrow.
Let's unpack this incredible story. What's really fascinating when you start looking at the sources is just how different Mary Stuart's actual background was from the quiet Midwestern archetype she perfected as Jo.
Oh, completely.
Her early life sounds anything but quiet. She was born Mary Stuart Houchins down in Miami in 1926, but she really grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
And her roots were definitely in performance, long before Hollywood or New York ever called. We have sources saying she was, a genuine performing prodigy.
Prodigy, how so? Get this. At the amazing age of 9, she was actually selected to perform with the legendary Count Basie Orchestra.
Count Basie.
At 9?
At 2 different shows. That implies this, innate talent and a fearlessness that must have been pretty rare back then. This early stage exposure, it certainly fed her future ambition.
You'd think so.
And she channeled this energy into her education, too. She majored in speech and drama at the University of Tulsa. And to support herself, keep connected to the arts, she worked for the local paper, the Tulsa Tribune, and also spent time at the Tulsa Little Theater.
Okay.
So she was clearly mapping a path toward professional acting. But, she realized pretty quickly that to make it big, she needed a bigger stage than Tulsa could offer.
Right. So at a remarkably young age, just 17, she makes the leap.
Straight to New York City.
And it wasn't instant acting success?
No, not at all. She had to hustle. The sources talk about her time working as a model, but maybe most famously, she worked as a nightclub photographer.
Oh, right, at the Roosevelt Hotel.
Exactly, the swanky Roosevelt.
And that hotel job, well, it turned out to be the ultimate turning point.
Pure Hollywood story.
Absolutely. It was pure Hollywood serendipity. While she was working the room there, she caught the eye of a major film producer, Joe Pasternak.
Ah, Pasternak.
And this meeting led directly to a screen test and then a highly sought-after 7-year contract with MGM in 1946. It really seemed like her path to stardom was set.
But Pasternak, he was known for being blunt, wasn't he? He delivered one of the most backhanded compliments in Hollywood history.
Oh, it's legendary. We really have to linger on that because it kind of sets the stage for her pivot to television later on.
So what did he actually tell her after signing her to this major contract?
Well, he essentially told her she was a diamond in the rough, but maybe emphasized the rough part first. His words were brutally honest. He said, "You can't sing, you can't walk, but there is something that you have. Let's figure out what it is." Right. It suggested that whatever Mary Stuart had was this intangible quality, a presence, maybe a relatability that you couldn't teach. But her technical skills, lagging behind, it must have been a pretty crushing critique for a young actress.
Ouch is right. So she had the undefinable, but maybe not the polished musical theater thing MGM often looked for. And her 4 years in Hollywood, they sort of reflected that struggle, didn't they? Finding the right vehicle.
Yeah, she was stuck in these tiny, often nameless walk-on roles.
Paying her dues.
Precisely. She spent those 4 years just paying her dues, often in roles that just, moved the major stars across the screen. She had that wonderful, self-deprecating quote, summing up her film career perfectly.
What was that?
She said, when the elevator doors opened and a girl said, "Going up," that was me. In the scenes where the secretary said, "Mr. Smick will see you now," that was me.
Perfect.
And she was around true legends. She appeared alongside Clark Gable in The Hucksters, Ronald Reagan in The Girl from Jones Beach. But she wasn't achieving that personal stardom herself. The roles were mostly in B-westerns, or just small, functional parts.
So after 4 years of basically being told going up, she realizes Hollywood isn't really valuing that intangible something Pasternak saw.
Seems that way.
So she wisely returns to New York. And that's where destiny truly steps in. Because in 1951, she gets cast as Joanne Gardner in a brand new daytime serial called Search for Tomorrow.
And this was the start of, well, a quiet but really profound cultural revolution. This show was a bit of a gamble. It launched as just a modest 15-minute serial.
15 minutes? Wow.
Yeah, produced by Procter & Gamble, the company that literally gave us the name soap opera for the genre because they sponsored these dramas aimed at housewives.
Right, the soap connection.
And Mary Stuart, who couldn't quite find her niche in the big glossy world of MGM. She found her ultimate home in the intimate, demanding, and emotionally complex world of live daily television. She became the foundational figure P&G needed to define their new sort of moral landscape on TV.
And we need to emphasize the technical side here. These early shows were live, right? 15 minutes, black and white.
Right.
What kind of pressure did that put on an actor like Mary Stuart compared to, say, a film set?
Oh, the pressure was immense. On a film set, you could do multiple takes. You mess up, you go again.
Sure.
But in live early television, if you forgot a line or missed a cue or tripped over the furniture, it was broadcast nationwide. Immediately. Boom. No takebacks.
Wow.
So you needed actors who were incredibly reliable, who could hold that dramatic tension without any safety net. This really favored actors with amazing stamina, great memorization skills, often people who came from the theater world.
Makes sense.
And that 15-minute format itself demanded extremely high pacing. You had to end every single day on some kind of miniature cliffhanger to keep the audience glued to their radio, or now their television screen. Then, bam, transition to the commercials. It was intense. So if we try to define Joanne Gardner's core identity, you really have to use that phrase, salt of the earth. She wasn't glamorous, she wasn't wealthy, she wasn't consumed by, high society intrigue like so many later soap heroines became. She was the accessible one, the understanding best friend.
The listener, almost.
Exactly. For decades, her main role was really to be the emotional sounding board for the other core characters. Most notably, her lifelong friends, Stu and Marge Bergman. Usually you'd see them hashing things out over a cup of coffee at the local diner or later on at her inn.
This emphasis on her being relatable, grounded, that's crucial, isn't it? It's what let viewers kind of project their own struggles onto her.
Absolutely.
But what really stands out about Jo, I think, is her almost radical capacity for forgiveness. She endured betrayals that would break most people. We mentioned it earlier, that devastating affair between her husband and her own sister.
Unthinkable for many.
And yet she found a way to forgive them. Provided, I guess, she sensed genuine remorse.
That's the key. That forgiveness wasn't just a character trait. It was almost like a moral statement, maybe mandated by the nature of those P&G soaps, which often prioritized morality and, eventual redemption.
But that trait, it was often misinterpreted by her rivals, wasn't it?
Oh, frequently. Characters like the early villain, Irene Barron, or later on, Stephanie Wilkins, they often saw Jo's profound capacity for grace as a weakness.
Right, they thought she was simple-minded or fragile, easy to exploit.
Exactly. They believed they could just prey upon her kindness. But the sources are really clear on this. Those attempts always failed. Always. Spectacularly.
Classic soap justice.
Classic, didactic soap opera justice. Jo's quiet strength consistently prevailed, and her rivals always, eventually, ate crow. It emphasized this powerful message to the early daytime audience, that goodness and endurance will always triumph over cynicism and greed.
So let's track her earliest struggles, the ones that really define this resilience. Jo grew up rooted in Henderson, this quintessential Midwestern town. Daughter of Frank, an accountant, and Helen, a housewife. Pretty standard stuff.
Her first major life change happened when she was just starting college.
She got swept off her feet.
Totally swept off her feet. Whisked away from college by the wealthy and charismatic Keith Barron. They married quickly, had their daughter, Patricia, known as Patty. But as often happens when a working-class heroine marries into money in these dramas, the wealth brought immense conflict, specifically in the form of Keith's mother, Irene Barron.
Ah, Irene.
Yeah.
The classic soap villain archetype. Classist, judgmental.
Yep. Believing Joe just wasn't good enough for the Barron family legacy, and she actively worked to destroy the young marriage. This dynamic immediately established Joe as the innocent victim of, social snobbery.
And then the first major tragedy strikes, really establishing the tragic pattern of Joe's life.
Early. In 1952, only about a year after the show debuted, Keith dies from injuries he got in a car accident. It left Joe a young widow.
Just like that.
And this wasn't just a dramatic plot point, it was devastating. It immediately put Joe in this existential crisis. And the villain, Irene, she seized the opportunity.
This is where the custody battles start, right? And we need to remember the social context of this in the 1950s.
Oh, absolutely. In the early 1950s, a young woman without a husband, she had very little legal or social standing compared to a wealthy, established matriarch like Irene Barron.
A tough spot.
Very tough. Irene fought aggressively for custody of Patty. Her argument to the court was basically that Joe, as a young widow without a primary breadwinner, was just incapable of providing a stable, secure future for her daughter. And this plot point, it resonated deeply with the female audience, many of whom faced similar economic vulnerabilities themselves.
But Joe's response was, well, pretty revolutionary for a daytime heroine back then. She didn't just look for a new man or rely on some rich relative.
No, she took action, aggressive financial action, to prove Irene wrong.
She became a businesswoman.
She did. To fight that custody battle and secure her daughter's future, Joe bought and began running the Motor Haven Inn.
The inn. Iconic.
It was. And this wasn't just a job. It was a massive statement of capability, of independence. She proved that a woman could be a dedicated mother and a successful proprietor. It really challenged that traditional 1950s view that a mother needed a husband to validate her social standing.
And the inn naturally became a magnet for drama. Yeah. Irene was determined to see her fail, wasn't she?
Oh, yeah. Irene didn't stop with the courts. She actually hired people specifically to sabotage the inn's operations, hoping to ruin Joe's reputation, her finances.
Undermine her completely.
Exactly. But here's where the drama escalated into, high stakes. The sources mention that mafia thugs later tried to take control of the business.
Mafia thugs? Seriously?
Seriously. They probably figured a single woman running a large establishment would be an easy target. But Joe successfully overcame both the hired saboteurs and organized crime. It showed that her goodness wasn't passive. It was backed by some formidable steel and, moral clarity.
Wow. So what happened to Irene?
After all these failures, Irene finally just left town in defeat.
A huge victory for Joe.
Yeah.
And as we touched on, there's that incredible behind-the-scenes nugget that really cemented Mary Stuart's bond with the audience. It blurred the lines between fiction and reality.
It's truly a landmark moment in daytime TV history. Mary Stuart was the very first actress in the entire history of daytime drama to have her real-life pregnancy written into the show.
The first ever.
The first. So when her son Jeffrey was born in 1956, Joe also gave birth on the show to her son Duncan Eric Tate.
Wow.
And to deepen that immersion, they actually filmed Mary Stuart at the hospital shortly after the birth. They seamlessly integrated her personal joy right into the storyline.
That's incredible. It must have made the audience feel like they were genuinely sharing a life event with her.
Totally. That level of intimacy is something we just rarely see today. It certainly solidified her position as the genre's definitive face, and she even leveraged the character's immense popularity beyond the screen.
How so?
Well, that same year, in 1956, she recorded a children's album. It was titled Joanne Sings.
Joanne Sings, okay.
Yeah, it capitalized on the character's wholesome maternal appeal. It just demonstrated how much viewers trusted and embraced the persona she had created. Mary Stuart was, by the mid-50s, basically synonymous with the American archetype of the moral, enduring woman.
Okay, so Joe's second significant relationship began in 1955 with Arthur Tate. He was a local businessman who initially helped finance the Motor Haven Inn.
Right.
Their marriage spanned over a decade. But unlike the, pure tragedy of Keith's death, this relationship seemed marked by weakness and immense emotional struggle, mostly on Arthur's part.
Yeah, Arthur Tate was explicitly characterized in the sources as not a strong man, which in the context of soap opera drama basically means he was a magnet for complications.
Like what?
Well, he struggled significantly with alcoholism. That placed a massive strain on the marriage and on Joe's own resilience. Then, in 1962, they faced more public humiliation when a woman arrived claiming Arthur was the father of her child.
Oh, boy. A paternity suit.
Yep. And although it was ultimately proven false, the child wasn't his fault, the emotional devastation caused by just the public accusation and the stress it put on Arthur's sobriety, it must have been enormous.
You can imagine. But the absolute worst heartbreak of their marriage arrived the following year, didn't it?
Yes. 1963 brought a tragedy that no amount of Joe's forgiveness could really fix. Their only son together, Duncan Eric Tate.
The one born when Mary Stuart had her son.
That's the one. He was tragically killed when he ran out in front of a car. The grief was crippling. It caused deep mental anguish for both parents. And the audience, remember, they had been invited into Mary Stuart's real-life joy just 7 years earlier with that on-screen birth. They felt that loss acutely.
Oh, absolutely. You'd hope that after losing their child, they would cling to each other, but...
Right.
Well, this is Search for Tomorrow.
Right.
The sources detail that devastating family betrayal we mentioned earlier. Joe's own sister, Eunice, arrives in Henderson and begins an illicit family relationship with Arthur, her sister, and her husband.
It's truly one of the genre's most painful classic storylines.
Yeah.
And the combination of Arthur's personal instability, his struggle with alcohol, the paternity scandal fallout, the death of their son, and the crushing weight of his infidelity with his wife's sister, it proved fatal. Yeah, the sources suggest that the stress, particularly the possibility that his marriage would be shattered beyond repair by his own actions and his sister-in-law's betrayal, it contributed directly to his death. Arthur Tate died of a heart attack in February 1966.
So that's husband number 2 gone.
And it established this pattern that followed Joe for decades. The men she loved, the supposed strong figures in her life, they were either taken from her by abrupt, tragic death, or they failed her through weakness, addiction, or infidelity. It's brutal.
So following Arthur's death, Joe enters this period of transition. She moves away from running the inn, shifts her focus to more professional work at Henderson Hospital.
Right. She first became the hospital librarian and then later moved up to personnel director. This was kind of a necessity, showing her continual need to rebuild her life and identity after each tragedy.
And this professional shift was marked by a very visible symbolic change that became a huge talking point for fans. The sources call it the 1967 soap event, Joe cutting off her long hair.
Yes. While she was married to Arthur, and especially while mourning Duncan, her hair had been grown out quite long. Then, when a new suitor, Sam Reynolds, entered her life, Joe deliberately cut off all that long hair. She adopted this short, modern hairstyle.
Well, this wasn't just a hairstyle change, it was signaling a character transformation.
Absolutely. It symbolized her shedding the identity of the perpetually mourning widow tied to Arthur's weaknesses and tragedies. The modern style was presented almost as a gift to Sam Reynolds, signaling a new, maybe lighter, more independent beginning.
I bet the audience loved it.
Oh, for an audience that watched her daily, this visual shift generated massive buzz. It visually confirmed that Joe Gardner was ready to move forward, not just endure.
Okay, so this brings us to Sam Reynolds, who was, ironically, Arthur's rival before Arthur died.
Right.
Their romance began with this moment of high heroism. Sam saved Joe's daughter, Patty, from some gang members trying to get drugs Patty had as a nurse.
Yeah, it was a very different relationship from her youthful marriage to Keith. This was very mature, a slow burn romance. Both Joe and Sam were now over 40. They consciously paced the relationship slowly, carefully planning their wedding for 1970. They really represented the possibility of a second chance love story for the more mature audience members.
Sounds hopeful, but the curse of Joe's love life struck again, didn't it, for the third time?
It did. In 1969, Sam traveled to Africa and was subsequently presumed dead.
Presumed dead, although.
Joe was, naturally, devastated, crushed again. He did eventually return, later on, played by a different actor, George Gaines.
George Gaines from Police Academy.
That's him. But the connection, it was irrevocably broken. The sources suggest that intense spark, the original connection they shared, it just couldn't be rekindled. So Joe had to accept yet another loss, a fiancé taken by circumstance, even though he physically came back.
Man, okay, so her next relationship was born directly out of personal catastrophe. Joe lost her eyesight temporarily after a bad car accident, and a neurosurgeon, Tony Vincente, was the one who saved her vision. So, naturally, a relationship evolved. This led to her third marriage in 1972.
Dr. Tony Vincente. He kind of represented the reliable hero Joe seemed to need after years of dealing with emotionally fragile men like Arthur.
Finally, maybe some stability.
It seemed like it. This marriage lasted until 1975. But the actor playing Tony, Anthony George, reportedly became unhappy with his character's direction.
Oh.
And, in the world of soaps, when a major actor's unhappy, the writers often oblige with a dramatic exit. Tony died of a heart attack right in Jo's arms in June 1975.
In her arms, husband number 3 gone.
Hmm.
Let's just pause here for the statistical aha moment. What does this sequence of events mean for Jo Gardner, who's now around 50 years old?
The statistics are just staggering, and they're crucial to her identity as the ultimate suffering heroine. By 1975, Joanne Gardner had endured the deaths of 4 significant partners.
So let's count. Keith.
First husband Keith died in 52, her son Duncan killed in 63, her second husband Arthur, heart attack in 66, and now her third husband Tony, heart attack in 75. She had become this walking magnet for tragedy.
Yet she maintained her foundational goodness.
Exactly. The audience recognized her not just as a character, but as this emblem of continuous, painful endurance. And the family trauma didn't stop there.
Oh.
In 1976, her sister Eunice, remember, the same sister who had betrayed her with Arthur but had supposedly reformed her ways.
Yeah.
She was fatally shot by her husband's mistress.
Oh, my God.
So Jo immediately steps into the matriarchal role again, absorbing yet another victim of the chaos surrounding her life, and she adopts her niece, Susie Martin. Joanne just wasn't allowed a moment to simply heal from her own losses. She was constantly repairing the fractured lives of everyone around her.
Okay, so as the 1970s progress, the show itself starts to change. It's moving toward those younger, maybe flashier dramas that would define the 1980s.
Right, the landscape was shifting.
So Jo's role, while still central, it subtly shifted too. She became less about her own romantic entanglements and more the guiding light, right? The matriarch counseling the next generation of younger women on this show.
Exactly. And she turned her focus back to business ventures alongside her best friend, Stu Bergman.
This business period kind of defined her late career arc, didn't it?
It really did. In 1976, she and Stu purchased Hartford House. They successfully converted it into an upscale bed and breakfast. It became this beloved set for 6 years until, soap opera drama strikes again.
Let me guess, something bad happened to it.
Oh, yeah. In 1982, it was dramatically destroyed in a major explosion.
Of course it was.
It kind of mirrored Jo's resilience, though. She literally had to rebuild her life and her livelihood over and over again. After that, she moved on to host the Riverboat Tavern and later managed Caldwell House, another B&B. She was just continuously striving for stability, for a place.
And during this time, she also gained a significant new rival, Stephanie Wilkins.
Yes, Stephanie. She had previously had an affair with Jo's third husband, Tony. Right. And she escalated her animosity later by marrying Jo's former brother-in-law, John Wyatt. The sources suggest this was explicitly done out of spite toward Jo. It just confirms that even in her later years, her quiet strength provoked these really strong reactions from the more cynical characters around her.
Okay, and this all leads us to her fourth major relationship, Martin Turner, played by John Aniston, Jennifer Aniston's father.
That's the one. Yes, John Aniston played Martin Turner. Jo married Martin in 1980. And this relationship is incredibly important because it finally broke Jo's established tragic mold.
How so? No death this time.
Exactly. After enduring 4 deaths of partners, her marriage to Martin Turner ended in her first ever divorce in 1984.
A divorce. Why?
Is infidelity. This was considered a genuine, almost scandal in the world of daytime drama because, despite surviving decades of incredible turmoil, Jo had always upheld the sacred institution of marriage. She'd only lost husbands to death. Dealing with a modern, messy, broken marriage, it introduced this new kind of vulnerability for her.
And Mary Stuart's reaction to this new phase was, well, pretty perfect.
Oh, it was great. After the divorce storyline played out, Mary Stuart handled it with her typical good humor. Because she divorced Martin due to his actions, she laughingly declared herself the world's oldest ingenue.
Oh, that's brilliant.
It really was. She made it clear that while her marriage was broken, her essential moral purity remained intact. It reinforced the character's core appeal even when facing modern infidelity.
Okay, now we arrive at the pivotal, really tumultuous shift that tragically doomed Search for Tomorrow. The show had been this steady staple on CBS for 30 years, right? Holding that 12:14 p.m. time slot.
Like clockwork.
But in 1981, CBS made a business decision that proved catastrophic for SFT.
Yeah, CBS decided to move Search for Tomorrow back to the 2:30 p.m. slot. The main reason was to accommodate the increasing dominance of The Young and the Restless. CBS wanted to put Y&R in that coveted midday position.
And the consequences were bad.
Immediate and dramatic. Procter & Gamble, the powerful producers who owned the show, they were furious. They had built their entire show, their audience, around that 12.30 slot for 3 decades.
So why was losing that slot so terminal? I mean, it sounds like just a 1-hour shift, but you're saying it fundamentally altered the show's economic foundation.
It was terminal because the daytime audience is incredibly habituated, creatures of habit, millions of loyal viewers, many of whom had literally been watching Joe since 1951. They had built their entire daily schedule around watching the show at 12:30 p.m.
Right. Lunch break, baby.
Exactly. Moving it confused them, angered them, and ultimately it alienated this core aging fan base. Furthermore, P&G demanded that CBS return the show to its original slot. When CBS refused, P&G decided, fine, we won't renew the contract. They sold the broadcast rights instead to NBC in 1982.
Whoa, switching networks after 30 years, that's huge.
Massive. And the move to NBC just compounded the initial damage. Not only did SFT now have to compete head-to-head with his former powerhouse stablemate, The Young and the Restless, which now owned the midday market.
Bad enough.
But many NBC affiliates actively chose to preempt the new 12.30 p.m. slot SFT got on NBC.
Preempt, meaning that they just didn't show it.
Exactly. Affiliates would air local news or syndicated programming like game shows instead of Search for Tomorrow. So millions of viewers across the country simply couldn't find the show anymore, regardless of the time slot. They just couldn't watch it.
And that's the death knell for a daytime drama, right? Yeah. If viewers can't reliably find you?
Advertisers won't pay, exactly. The ratings just nosedived. The show was basically kept on life support by its hardcore and largely elderly fans, as the sources described them. This financial instability forced the writers to increase the dramatic stakes exponentially. It was a desperate attempt to regain viewers in those final years.
We have to talk about the 1983 live show event, though. That sounds like a shining moment of legacy during this decline.
Oh, it's an incredible story of sheer professionalism. On August 4th, 1983, both the master copy and the backup videotape of that day's recorded episode somehow went missing.
Both copies? How does that even happen?
Who knows? But it was a technical catastrophe. The cast, including Mary Stuart, of course, was forced to perform the entire episode live, something they hadn't done in 16 years, since they switched to recorded telecasts back in 1967.
Wow. Live soap opera in '83.
It was a huge feat. It demonstrated the incredible dedication and the foundational skills of these long-running actors. They were capable of delivering flawless drama under absolutely impossible pressure. It's something rarely seen in modern television.
Incredible. But Joe's personal trials, they just intensified right up until the very end, didn't they?
Yeah.
We move into the show's final years, 1985 and 1986. Which sound like just a continuous chain of devastation.
They threw everything they possibly could at the audience. In late 1985, Joe's granddaughter, Sarah Whitting, she was pursuing a music career. She was brutally murdered by Melvin Hibbard, a business partner at Caldwell House.
Murdered? Her granddaughter?
Yes, and then Hibbard kidnapped Joe as an act of twisted revenge. So Joe was forced into serious physical peril, even in her late 50s.
And no peace for her.
None. And this kidnapping was immediately followed by a high-stakes serial killer plotline. That claimed the life of Joe's rival, Stephanie Wyatt, in February 1986.
Okay, murder, kidnapping, serial killer. What next?
A natural disaster. The show topped itself with a catastrophic flood that wiped out most of Henderson.
Wiped out the town?
Pretty much. Joe was nearly killed, but was eventually rescued by Hogan McCleary and her daughter, Patty.
The trauma was just nonstop.
Absolutely relentless. Right up until the show's cancellation was announced in the fall of 1986. Even then, in October 1986, just weeks before the end, her niece, Susie McCleary, was killed by an unstable woman named Ella Hobbs. The show essentially destroyed the fictional town and several main characters on its way out the door.
Good grief. It aired its final episode when?
December 26, 1986. Its 9,130th episode.
9,130. Unbelievable. Despite all that chaos, the producers managed to give Joe a moment of peace at the end, right? Tying the story back to her family.
They did. They provided closure that was rooted in family unity, which was always Joe's core theme, really. On that final day, Joe was able to watch her daughter, Patty, marry Hogan McCleary. It gave a sense of generational resolution, you know.
That's good.
And the iconic final lines belong to her and Stu Bergman, her best friend from the very beginning, back in 1951. Stu asks her, "What is it, Joe? What is it you're searching for?"
And after 35 years of endurance, the answer was simple.
Simple and perfect. Joe replied, "Tomorrow, and I can't wait." It was just the perfect, defiant, optimistic summation of a character who refused, absolutely refused, to be defeated by yesterday's tragedies.
That final line, tomorrow, and I can't wait, it just perfectly encapsulates the tenacious spirit of both Jo Gardner and Mary Stuart herself.
When Search for Tomorrow was finally canceled, it held the record, didn't it? As the longest-running daytime program in American television history at that time.
It did, a feat owed almost entirely to Mary Stuart's continuous presence. It's an astonishing record. It reflects this deep, sustained commitment. She was the only actor to span the entire 35-year duration of the show.
Unheard of, really. And her longevity, her dedication, it earned her significant industry recognition. She was nominated for several Emmys over the decades, including recognition at the very first Daytime Emmy Awards back in 1974.
And she won a big one later.
Yes. In 1985, she received the very well-deserved Lifetime Achievement Emmy from the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences.
But the sources reveal that beneath that public face, the eternally optimistic and forgiving Jo Gardner, Mary Stuart was navigating some truly difficult personal struggles. She detailed them bravely in her 1980 book, Both of Me. This book offered the public a really stark contrast between the character and the reality of the actress playing her.
Yeah, Both of Me was a powerful, really raw account of the immense struggles she faced as a working mother, especially with the demanding schedule of daily television, particularly during her first marriage to Richard Krolik, which ended back in 1966.
What did she talk about?
She openly discussed Krolik's emotional coldness and his constant, often public, belittling of her intelligence and her aspirations.
That anecdote about his reaction to her writing the book, it's just heartbreaking. Really shines a light on the cruelty she endured privately.
It really does. It exposed the deep contrast between her public life and her private misery. She showed Krolik the manuscript for Both of Me, probably hoping for some support or recognition.
Yeah.
Only for him to respond with that incredibly cruel, undermining line, "Hey, you wrote a book and you never read one."
Oh, that's just awful.
Terrible. And this emotional strain, combined with the pressures of maintaining that perfect, perpetually cheerful persona of Jo Gardner for the public, it took a severe toll on her mental health.
She talked about that in the book.
She did. She revealed that she struggled intensely. She reached this moment of profound anguish, even suicidal ideation. She wrote that she felt like she was treading water at the bottom of a well and I needed help.
Wow. The sources also detail how she tried to cope with that private struggle back in the 1960s.
Yes, she was very candid about seeking professional therapy, which was good, but also about her previous attempts at self-medication just to get through the demanding schedule each day.
How so?
She wrote about routinely drinking 2 martinis and taking 2 5-milligram tranquilizers daily just to cope. This stark revelation provides such critical context. The woman the world saw as the unflappable model of endurance was internally battling severe depression and anxiety.
It really deepens that theme of perseverance, doesn't it? Knowing the battles she fought off camera while delivering the emotional stability her character needed on camera.
Absolutely. It makes her performance even more remarkable.
So after Search for Tomorrow ended in 1986, Mary Stuart didn't entirely disappear from the genre she basically helped build.
No, she took a brief retirement, but eventually she returned to television.
Doing what?
Well, she played the role of the crooked Judge Weber on One Life to Live briefly in 1988, which must have been a fun change of pace from the pure-hearted Jo.
I bet.
Then, in 1996, she accepted the role of Meadowbauer on another iconic CBS soap, Guiding Light.
Another P&G show, right?
Exactly. She stayed with Guiding Light for 6 years, essentially right up until her death. It kind of bookended her massive career, starting and nearly ending her tenure on 2 of the most foundational Procter & Gamble-sponsored dramas.
And she used her celebrity platform not just for acting, but for some significant advocacy work, too.
She did. She was deeply committed to promoting literacy. She started the New York chapter of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation book, Pay ALS, that's Performing Artists for Literacy in Schools.
Look, pal.
Yeah, and she was dedicated to reading to school children. She initiated like 6 reading clubs in New York schools. She really understood the power of narrative and connection, kind of carrying Jo's wholesome educational spirit into her post-acting life.
That's fantastic.
And for viewers, for you out there listening who might wish to touch a piece of that history, perhaps the most tangible, lasting legacy of her role as Jo Gardner rests in Washington, D.C.
Oh, what's there?
The simple apron she wore while playing Jo. You know, the symbol of the quintessential American housewife and businesswoman from that era. It currently hangs in the National Museum of American History at the Smithsonian.
An apron in the Smithsonian. That says something. Mary Stuart sadly passed away in 2002 at age 75, following a stroke. And her later years were marked by the same kind of resilience that defined her character. She had battled and survived breast cancer earlier in her life, only to later contend with gastric cancer and bone cancer. Her life was just a testament to enduring hardship, both fictional and tragically very personal.
So when we try to synthesize the impact of Joanne Gardner, we realize she was so much more than just a character. She really defined the archetype of the American daytime heroine for generations. She successfully transitioned from that, moralizing radio heroine of the 1950s into the modern, resilient working woman of the 1980s.
She saw it all.
She really did. She was victimized constantly by circumstance, but she was never truly a victim in spirit. She demonstrated that unwavering goodness, that radical capacity for forgiveness, that they were sustainable virtues, even in the often cynical world of soap opera. She absolutely set the benchmark for emotional depth and commitment in serialized storytelling.
And Mary Stuart's personal journey, it really mirrors that resilience, doesn't it? She went from being a Hollywood starlet who was literally told she couldn't sing or walk,
Right,
to becoming this television legend whose character's final word on the air was that defiant, hopeful shout of tomorrow. That dedication, the belief in moving forward despite the pain of yesterday, that, I think, is the true meaning of perseverance. And it's why Jo Gardner's legacy and Mary Stuart's endures. Thanks for joining us for Legacy of a Soap Star. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your favorite memories of Joanne Gardner and Mary Stuart in the comments below. What classic soap opera legend should we dive into next time?